Will Bryce Young go down as the worst number one draft pick ever?
Possibly. This brother looked smaller than me and was at least 3 inches shorter than me. You're talking about among 32 quarterbacks with at least 250 attempts. His record is 2-16, worse than the NFL.
Again, this is way just too big of a question. I'm selling this.
Bryce is discussed in far more charitable terms than most number one overall picks would be.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. We are talking about Bryce Young and this Carolina Panthers team in today's video. Now, I'm always excited and giddy to talk about Bryce Young and the Carolina Panthers, but today even more so. I got two beautiful Jersey Mike sandwiches on the way. It's funny because Dave Canales kind of saved Bryce Young's career, and that has nothing to do with Bryce Young's talent level or anything like that. I keep seeing so many tweets of your guys' wide receiver room when he first acquired Bryce Young with the first pick in the draft a couple of years ago, and we all knew how bad it was, but it really is crazy. DJ Moore gets traded away, and Bryce really had nobody to throw it to. And so, like I just said, it's funny because Dave Canales, almost saved his career in Carolina. He almost saved the Carolina Panthers. But it's funny because he got benched after a few games last year, right? But comes back strong and reminded every single person or every Panthers fan why he is the franchise quarterback. So from week 10 to week 18, Bryce Young earned an 85.3 PFF passing grade, which was the 6th best in the NFL, and his 22 big-time throws trailed only Joe Burrow. So if we continue to see what we saw from Bryce, specifically in that Atlanta game where he threw 5 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, Carolina even won 2 of their last 3 games last season with the league's worst run defense in NFL history. And then we saw Tedo McMillan come into the mix with their first round draft pick. And so we saw Bryce Young's comfort level improve as the year progressed, especially like the final, we say it on this channel, like the last 6 games of the season. I would say starting around even the Kansas City game, that's where we saw Bryce Young really start to acclimate. And we look at like that Philadelphia game where you guys only lost by 6. Should have won that game, neither here nor there. But it looks like Bryce is poised for a breakout year. And in those final 6 games of the season, his air yards per attempt were 9.6. And just for example, his career was 8.8. So he was relaxed. He was smart. He actually threw a touchdown in every game from week 8 to 18. And then the 5 touchdowns in that last game against Atlanta really was amazing. So before we get into it, hit that like button, hit that sub button for daily NFL content. I love all my Panthers fans. You guys are amped up, rightfully so, for this upcoming season. And I always love talking Carolina Panthers, man. I got a bunch of family in Charlotte area. I got a bunch of family in North Carolina. And so I've got a lot of fond memories of the Carolina region. So anyways, 29th is where PFF ranked the Carolina Panthers roster, which is absurd to me. But I do understand it, but I also don't. I guess I'm a little bit bigger on a lot of their free agent acquisitions than the rest of the NFL, but neither here nor there. PFF did a article ranking all 32 teams based on their roster for this upcoming season. And like I said, they had Carolina clocking in at 29, which makes them truly the perfect dark horse for this upcoming season. But what a lot of people don't understand is one of the greatest strengths of this Panthers offense is their offensive line. It's crazy because 2 years ago in 2023, aka Bryce Young's rookie campaign with no wide receiver number 1, it was amongst the league's worst. So last year in free agency, Carolina goes out, they sign a couple of guards in Robert Hunt and Damian Lewis. And because of that, last year in 2024, the Panthers offensive line ranked 7th in the NFL in PFF overall grade. So that's really the biggest catalyst, in my opinion, for why Bryce Young was so comfortable in that final second half of the season. Now, it wasn't all perfect. People like to rag on his 60.3 completion rate. That rate plummeted a lot to about 39% when throwing 15 or more air yards. Zone coverage statistics aren't the best. Bryce Young's had a tough time ranking 40th in completion percentage and 42nd in yards per completion when going against zone coverage. But like we said, you've got a couple of guys, Xavier, Coker, Adam Thielen, and now you got a couple of tight ends. JT looks really good. He looks poised for a breakout sophomore campaign here. He also picked up another tight end. I feel really good about his surrounding weapons, even without Tedo McMillan. And I guess, doesn't he not like to be called Tedo? It's just a little bit more difficult, so apologies there. The biggest weakness for Carolina last year was clearly their rush defense and their defense in general. And, J.C. Horn statistically had a down season. Derek Brown, I believe, played, what was it, one game? I think Derek Brown played one game. We'll talk about him in just a second because I do have some notes on him. But the defense never really gave Carolina a chance to win, which ended up working out in their favor because they stole 2 of their last 3 games and almost fell out of the top 10, but they were still able to get, hopefully wide receiver number 1 in Tedo McMillan. But the defense allowed 30 points, or at least 30 points, in 10 of 17 games last season. So whether it was through the draft or free agency, that shouldn't be happening next year. We've made a bunch of videos on Carolina, but if you guys want a whole defensive video, let me know, and we'll do that down below. Once again, I mentioned him. Derek Brown is back. It's crazy. Yeah, he suffered a season-ending injury in week 1 last year. If you go back to 2023, one of the best in the business, 90.9, or actually 90.0 PFF run defensive grade. That was second in the entire NFL. And that's like, you could say Derek Brown was the biggest offseason acquisition for Carolina, and is crazy because he was already on the team. That's how good Derek Brown is, and I don't need to explain to Panthers fans about that. So Tedo McMillan is where things hopefully really open up here. The way I would describe McMillan is he's a very quarterback-friendly wide receiver. All right. He hit the ground running in Arizona in 2022. A lot of people, based on OTA clips as well, just think that seamless transition is about to be, entered into the NFL here. He hauled in 8 touchdowns and led all FBS freshmen in receiving. And then 2 years later, he finishes college career at 2,700 passing yard or receiving yards and lands number 8. But my favorite part about the whole Tedo McMillan being a member of Carolina is just the fact that Bryce Young wanted this to happen. All right. It kind of gives me a similar feeling to Justin Herbert with Ladd McConkey last year, where I think these guys' chemistry, I think it's just going to be right away, and I think it's going to be perfect. But Bryce has been a fan of them since their high school teams met all the way back in 2019. They ran in together at a training facility ahead of the draft, and he made it clear to Dave Canales and Dan Morgan that that's the guy he wanted. One thing that stood out to him was his ability to go up and grab the football, which is something Carolina just didn't really have last season. So among players with at least 70 catches last year, McMillan ranked number 2 in all of college football in off-target reception percentage at nearly 20%, and that was 6 ticks higher than the average in that category. He's 6'4", 219 pounds, but like a lot of you guys have been saying on Twitter, follow my Twitter link in the description, by the way, he moves like he's not 6'4", 220. I mean, he moves almost like he's a slot wide receiver at 6 foot, I don't even know, 200 pounds, 190, something like that. His quickness, his agility, the way he breaks off the ball, it's not like a 6'4", 220 guy. So I think this is the game changer here. I really do. Everything we saw at the end of last season and the addition of Tedo, I think that's game changing. All right. But I just wanted to throw some Panthers propaganda out for you guys. I hope you have a great weekend. Hit that like button, hit that sub button. We'll see you guys soon. Peace.